Even more revolutionary than the Merchant Navy class was Bulleid's Leader design, which was built at Brighton. This was the culmination of a lifetime's ideas to produce the ultimate steam design, and so proved that steam was far from dead and well worthy of future development. Unfortunately for Bulleid, time was against him, and it was not until June 1949 that the first and only Leader left the works to commence trials. Bulleid had attempted to utilize the latest in engineering technology for the engine, which included considerable use of welding techniques, as well as placing the boiler and frames on two powered bogies with a cab at each end of the locomotive. The boiler and fuel bunkers were offset on the main frame with the intention of affording a communicating corridor from one end to the other. To compensate for previous difficulties, a form of axial rotation was imparted to the sleeves by means of oscillating gear, which is seen here on the bogie of number 36001, undergoing a static steam test at Brighton. The complexity of the motion assembly is obvious, all of which was later enclosed in protective covers intended to keep out dirt. Unfortunately, it also prevented advance warning of impending failure, and the mechanism was later simplified and the covers removed.
Hello YouTube, Matt here from the Blue Belt Model Railway channel, here with a model review. After 4 years, pretty much, of waiting, KR Models Bulleid Leader has finally arrived on the UK shores. I'm sure there's a few reviews out there already, but I intend to give you a full review as well as details, going through it and running through what's right, what's wrong, and what could be done maybe slightly better. I ordered this model in February 2021 and paid in installments directly with KR Models. Of course, these are also being sold through Rails of Sheffield now, although I believe this version is actually possibly sold out. The model that I have in front of me, 36001, is the original prototype, although in the description of what I ordered, which is prototype grey, no crest, it didn't even mention any lining, so I was kind of expecting just the prototype grey version with nothing on it apart from the front number plate. But I have a lined version, so apparently they were never going to do just the prototype grey, so a little bit misleading in the description there, but never mind. So here it is in front of us, and what I'll do is I'll go around, give you some information on the model, point out a few areas which I think need pointing out, and any issues that I'm also already aware about, I will also list as we go through. So stay tuned, and if you're expecting sunshine and lollipops, you're not exactly going to get that from this video. You will get honesty and truth. So stay tuned and see you in the next bit. So what do you get in the box? So of course you get your Bulleid Leader model, which is rather weighty and heavy, and you also get a couple of detailing packs which are underneath. We've got some chain links and some instantainers there, and we have some root discs and some standard NEM tension locks. Also inside is your kind of owner's manual, which is kind of a bit of a letdown because there's nothing really about the model inside apart from just text about the prototype. So there's nothing about maintaining, running in, or anything like that, so pretty basic. Looks nice on the surface but lacking in detail inside, but I think we have seen this before with other models. Also you get your DCC, if you have one. This is a DCC ready model, so it shouldn't really have this, but here we are. And so we have all the sound functions, etc., and various toggling in terms of lighting, etc., which of course, being a DC model, we don't get, and there's no switches to adjust it, which is a bit of a shame. And that's basically what you get within the box. So before I start this review, I will be honest and say this is not the first one I have received. This is the second. The first one unfortunately had a fair bit of damage on it. A missing buffer, a vacuum cylinder had come loose from a bogie, bits missing, a whistle was missing from the front, as well as a lamp iron on one end as well. And overall that was quite disappointing, but it was quite obvious that the packaging had failed and the model has shifted. Not only this, after just checking it as well, making sure it did run and work, the wheel fell off as well on one bogie, and it did appear quite loose, which I'm aware that this could be quite a big issue throughout the range. I have read quite a few have had wheels fall off, which is a bit of a shame, but we'll go through and maybe have a look why. But let's get on with the review, and we'll start at one end and make our way round. So starting on the front of this model of Leader. So on the front here we have some flush glazing, lamp irons and various rivets. We also have illuminated lamps at the front, and these, when running, are all illuminated, and as previously mentioned, on the DC ready version you cannot switch them. It would have been a nice touch if they could have installed like a micro switch panel, maybe underneath one of the roof vents, where you could switch the various lights on or off, depending on which running code you're using on the front. So going for a little bit more detail, we have the whistle on the front here, not painted a separate colour to the body, just the same silver rather than grey body colour. We have the 6 lamps, one at the top, 2 on each side and 1 in the middle. We also have a running number just below here, and as I say, flush glazing and a window wiper on this side. However, these glazing panels seem to have somewhat of a black outline to them, which I'm not quite sure why. It's certainly not on the prototype, so who knows. Going lower down we have a fair bit of rivet detail. Now I did see these on the original CAD and was hoping maybe these might have been changed, as it does appear in photos they were less prominent, and probably they would have been flush riveted rather than actual have rivet heads on the surface. All the lamp irons on this one are intact, if not a bit wonky in some places, especially the middle one here. So maybe we can fix that along the way. We have some stainless steel or some nickel silver handrail here, added to each side of the cab. And moving down we have some sort of representation of the oscillating valve gear, although to be honest they could have done a better representation. There were sort of 3 versions, with the oscillating valve gear or with a cover, and then it was totally removed later on. So it's a bit of a shame we just got one variation of this. They could have done quite a lot more. Moving down to the buffer beam, which is an unusual colour. Now I did bring this up, as did somebody else on KR's Facebook page, and we did question why is it black, surely it should be red, and Keith, or whoever runs the KR Models Facebook page, assured us that they were supposed to be black. Well, I'm sure as you've probably seen on the entrance clips, there's a colour photo of Leader with a red buffer beam. so that is a mistake. We have one hose, which could be either steam or vacuum, but not a second. Now on Leader there usually, or was, two pipes coming down from underneath the loco's cab connecting to the front buffer beam. Now of course that would probably limit the swing of this bogie, but of course we're still missing one pipe on there, unfortunately. We have the standard NEM pocket underneath, but oddly we have also no guard irons in front of the wheels from the front section here, which is prototypical, so that's a bit of a shame as well. We do have sprung buffers, which are sprung for those who love them, and overall it's okay, but nothing that stands out. What he could have also done, or China could have done, is they could have added the small little lampshade on the front, which is sort of a coupling light which comes down from the underside, and maybe put a small LED in there, but that's just me. These models are priced at 185, so they are quite high up in the range in terms of price. Moving back along the body side now. So on the bogie we have the separately fitted step, which is present on correct on both sides. Now on this model as well, I've noticed the brakes, they have no rigging at all, and there's nothing in the detail pack, so this is just moulded as is. So that's a little bit underwhelming and a little bit lackluster, especially when you've got so many brake blocks along the side of here. The wheels, as already mentioned, are the wrong pattern. They should not be all the way see-through on the teardrops. They should have a small hole and mainly backfilled, or have a backing to them. Moving along, everything seems about present and correct. We have a sort of steam generator here. The boxes for either the gear chain, which goes around. This is not chain driven valve gear, that was internal. This one is just a link chain, but these boxes cover it up. The wheels are 5'4", or should be on the actual original prototype, and they seem about the right size here. Moving up, we have the door, which is just moulded, not sliding. The handrail here is in the wrong place. It should be on the inside edge of this door. The lining, black and red. There is some discussion if there should be two black lines rather than black and red, and also the inner line is too thick, so it needs to be thinner. The numbers unfortunately are incorrect in terms of their style or font. The three should be slightly different, and the colour of them, or the infill, is just not correct either. The riveting on here seems a bit sparse and also maybe oversized. The top roof vent on cab N2 doesn't move, it's just all solidly moulded as one piece. So looking from above, let's have a look at the water space and the coal space. So starting from the left, we have a reasonable representation, although the floor of the, or top of the water tank it should be called, isn't exactly correct in terms of how it's set up. There should be a lower section in the middle, and the sides sort of tilting inwards to a middle sort of trough, as it were. So that's a bit disappointing. We have a tank here with a piece of wire bent at various 90-degree angles going towards the coal space. This could have been something to sort of spray water onto the coal load to get the dust down. I have no idea. We have a metal turned vent just here, but on other photos I've seen of the water space, there was a sort of triangular box just behind this main top box here, but that seems to have been missed as well. There's also the water filler cap just here, which seems to be reasonably correct, but again it just feels a little bit unfinished, which really should have been black, not silver or grey, whatever you want to call it. Moving to the coal space here, we have a oddly moulded and shaped coal load. This is all sort of resin, cast resin. Where the coal load looks reasonable, but the shape and the size of it, and also it's stuck down with double-sided sticky tape. So if I just put that back in there, you can sort of see just how small it is compared to the space available. So that, again, it's all attention to detail which is certainly missing, and it doesn't fit quite right in terms of the shape of the bunker. You can see bits sort of overspilling and being too high. It just doesn't look right, unfortunately. So we'll carry on down the side of the locomotive and into the centre. So looking at the middle of the model now, and we can see along the rooftop we have obviously a fake roof vent. This is where the cab would be, and the fireman. And in the middle here we would have a firebox for the main boiler. And we can see on the top here we have some cutouts for washout plugs, although not many of them. And we just have one solitary washout plug here. Again, there should be a nice row here and along here, and a few more on the rooftop as well. So a lot of missing detail in this area. Moving along, the safety valve mounts are unfortunately not correct either. Even aesthetically it should be just one long opening rather than two circles or circular cutouts. Along here, I'm not quite sure what this area is, but I have it on a message from a friend of mine who knows Bulleids very well. Cant rail opening or covers have been left open here. Apparently that was only on the latter days. It would have been nice if they had them sort of removable or magnetically removable or something like that. Would have been quite nice. Along the underside we have a pretty boring ash pan to look at, but they were quite bland, lack of detail. So nothing really wrong really there, but it's just a bit bland. We've got some pipe work just there, which just ends in fresh air, like you can see on the other side as well. And that's just to allow the bogies to actually rotate and move. On the bogies themselves we have the 4 vacuum cylinders, 2 on the rear end of the bogies, which is correct. And again we look at the non-existent brake rigging as well. Moving on to cab end number 1, and again we have pretty much the same story as we did at the cab end number 2. So this is cab 1 as mentioned, the hot end, where the smoke box is just behind the cab, and as I say it's pretty much identical in every single way. I will mention something I forgot on the other end. The cab front plate for number plates 36001 is also slightly oversized in terms of its height and possibly a little bit of width. I also think the printing could be slightly bigger to take up more room on the plate, which obviously and possibly makes it look a little bit bigger than it ought to. Other than that, we have the window wiper on the glazing as per the other end. Non-opening doors obviously just moulded shut, and we have the standard footsteps on the bogie. And moving on from the bogie, along the sides we have again quite large rivet detail along the panel lines, which again in my view is slightly oversized. Again, looking on the other side of the model now, again we have the same printing errors of course as before. Also some question over the radius of the corners on the livery of the lining on this model. Looking at the bogie again, there's been some comments that the body is too high off the bogies. I do tend to agree with this statement, and in my view it was kind of unavoidable in terms of the design of the bogie and how it rotates. If they'd have probably moved the rotation point from around about here backwards, then at least these wheels, which are obviously underneath the body shell, they wouldn't rotate outwards and hit the body shell. Of course you'd get more overhang on this side, but at least the body shell itself would be lower. Apart from that, there's not much else to say. Moving back though, we can see a nice actual line of washout plugs on this particular side, but still lacking on the roof. And looking at the Fireman's hot seat or the cab, and we can see the normal flush glazing, which we can see on the cab window here and also on the door. Now looking at this again, we got the black outline and edging for each window, and that just is not correct whatsoever. And there's also some question about the positioning of the cab door and window, if it's too far back or not far enough forwards. We can see the one cab step just here, which is attached to the bogie. There's also one on the opposite side. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. I will have to check some photos, but from what I can see, I don't believe there is one there, but I'm not 100% sure because the photos are in black and white and they're not very clear on some occasions. Under the body shell we will find a Plux 22 socket, as well as the motor with two flywheels. I believe it's a 5-pole motor and it is mounted in the centre. So a very quick roundup before we head to the rolling road of KR Models Leader. So £185 was spent buying this model 3 years ago, and generally I would say it's just okay. It's nothing to get excited about really. It does run okay, which you'll see in a moment, but there's so many little errors that adds up to just not paying attention to the details in terms of looking at drawings, having the right research in place before you go to design and before you go on to tooling. For me it just seems a little bit of a rush, even though it's taken 3 years. I don't think he's had the right people involved in terms of making this model from the ground up, or the wheels up. The wheels are the wrong pattern. There's some details on the bogies which aren't quite correct. Why is there a step on the other side when there shouldn't be? The oscillating valve gear, it's quite a poor representation. There were 3 different kind of styles you could put in there, from it being there to having it removed or to have a cover over the front. There's a missing steam or vacuum pipe on the front as well. The buffer beam isn't painted. Radiuses of corners and edges. The body shell doesn't look quite right. It just seems like the corners and the curves on the top of the roof just aren't quite right, especially from the front. The corners on the lining aren't quite right. The lining colours, possibly question mark, are not quite right either. The numbers, the number 3, wrong font being used. The lights on the front being too bright. It's all little details. The rivets, the types of rivets being used, it's just poorly looked at. Look down into detail. It's like having a second or third pass of plans and checking everything before it goes on to the next thing. It really needed an expert behind this to get it correct and right before it went to tooling and market. And they are fragile as well. Quite a few have had problems. I had a problem. I had bits falling off. I've had wheels fall off the first one. This one seems a little bit better, so hopefully we'll find out in a minute if all the wheels stay on. But it does run quite well, which you'll see in a moment. It's just frustrating that there's so many little details that have been missed and could have been painted in certain areas. Washout plugs missing, detail lacking. There's just a lot of things that add up into making the model not quite good enough for the price point it's priced at, which is 185. Some are probably still around and available from Rouser Sheffield, but be cautious, that's all I'm going to say. So now we'll get on to some running and pick up some video footage from there. So that is my review of KR Models Bulleid Leader class. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it's insightful and interesting as always, and apart from a few things I've missed, which also are the red tail lights, which you shouldn't have, apart from that, the model does run quite nicely. The mechanism's nice and smooth and quiet, and it runs pretty well. Just a shame about the body shell, never mind. But hopefully people will enjoy their models if they've ordered one, and hopefully it won't be a very big paperweight. Other than that, I hope you enjoy all the new models coming for 2025, and hopefully you will see a few on this channel. Thanks for watching. Leave any questions or comments below and I'll try and get back to you as quickly as I can. Other than that, enjoy your modelling, enjoy your model railways, and as always, have fun.